The inspector's directive raises serious liability concerns because the proposed setup firstly relies on a faulty device. The Edwards 282 BPL rate of rise heat detector is known to produce trouble signals. Secondly, it eliminates direct current backup. The absence of a direct current backup system increases the risk of system failure in the event of a power outage. Thirdly, it introduces a single point of failure. The Edwards heat detector becomes the only device responsible for triggering all the fire smoke detectors. If this device fails, the entire system will be compromised. The proposed setup violates several code requirements, including NFPA 72, the National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code. Section 7.6.1.3 requires that heat detectors be installed in attics. However, the FireX 194 heat detector is not available. It also violates Underwriters Laboratories UL 268 standard for smoke detectors. Section 8.2.1 prohibits the use of a heat detector to initiate evacuation alarms. Local building codes may have specific requirements for heat detectors in attics and prohibit the use of devices that produce trouble signals. Instead of the proposed and safe setup, consider the following alternatives. Firstly, install a FireX 801RB heat detector in the attic. This is a rate of rise heat detector that is approved for use in attics and does not produce trouble signals. Secondly, install a smoke detector in the attic. Smoke detectors are more effective than heat detectors in detecting fires in attics, especially in areas with equipment. Thirdly, ensure that the system has a direct current backup. This will provide power to the smoke detectors in the event of a power outage. Document the inspector's request and your concerns. Keep a record of all communication with the inspector and explain your reasons for not implementing their directive. Notify the State Fire Marshal. Inform the State Fire Marshal about the inspector's directive and your concerns. Consult with a qualified fire alarm professional. Seek guidance from an expert to determine the best course of action for your specific installation. The inspector's proposed setup is dangerous, code violating, and exposes you to liability. Consider alternative solutions, document your concerns, and communicate them to the appropriate authorities. It is critical to understand the potential liabilities and code violations associated with non-compliant fire safety systems. The specific instance highlights several key areas of concern that need careful consideration. Firstly, the reliability of the devices used is paramount. Employing a heat detector known to produce trouble signals, such as the Edwards 282 BPL, introduces an inherent risk of false alarms or system malfunctions. These trouble signals can desensitize occupants to genuine emergencies and increase maintenance costs due to unnecessary service calls. Secondly, the absence of a direct current backup is a significant oversight. Fire alarm systems are designed to operate even during power outages, and a direct current backup ensures continuous functionality. Without it, the entire system becomes vulnerable to power failures, leaving occupants unprotected when they are most vulnerable. Thirdly, relying on a single heat detector to trigger all smoke detectors creates a single point of failure. If this detector malfunctions or fails to activate due to a slow-burning fire, the entire system will be compromised. This design flaw significantly reduces the overall effectiveness of the fire detection system. Code compliance is non-negotiable in fire safety. Several codes and standards are potentially violated by the proposed setup. NFPA 72, the National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code, provides comprehensive guidelines for fire alarm systems. Section 7.6.1.3 specifically addresses heat detector installation in attics. The inability to use the specified FireX 194 heat detector raises questions about compliance and the need for approved alternatives. UL 268, the standard for smoke detectors, prohibits using heat detectors to initiate evacuation alarms in certain scenarios. This is because smoke detectors are generally more effective at detecting fires in their early stages, providing earlier warnings and enabling faster evacuation. Local building codes may also have specific requirements for heat detectors in attics and restrictions on devices that produce trouble signals. It is essential to consult these codes to ensure full compliance. Given the identified issues, alternative solutions are necessary. Firstly, consider installing a FIX 801RB heat detector in the attic. This model is specifically approved for attic use and does not generate trouble signals. It offers a more reliable and compliant solution. Secondly, prioritize smoke detectors in the attic. Smoke detectors are generally more effective at detecting fires, especially in areas with equipment where smoldering fires are more likely. Their faster response time can be critical in saving lives and minimizing property damage. Thirdly, ensure the system includes a direct current backup to provide uninterrupted power during outages. This is a fundamental requirement for all fire alarm systems. Documenting concerns and communication are crucial steps in addressing this situation. Firstly, meticulously document the inspector's request, noting any specific instructions or justifications provided. Secondly, clearly outline the concerns regarding liability, code violations, and potential risks associated with the proposed setup. Thirdly, communicate these concerns in writing to the inspector and request a written response acknowledging your concerns and providing further clarification or justification for the directive. Notifying the state fire marshal is a prudent step. Informing the fire marshal about the situation, including the inspector's directive and your documented concerns, ensures that the appropriate authorities are aware of the potential issues. This can help protect you from liability and ensure that the fire safety system meets the required standards. Seeking guidance from a qualified fire alarm professional is highly recommended. A fire alarm expert can assess the specific installation, review the relevant codes and standards, and provide recommendations for the best course of action. Their expertise can help ensure that the fire safety system is compliant, reliable, and effective. In conclusion, the inspector's proposed setup presents unacceptable risks and violates established codes. By understanding the liability concerns, code violations, and alternative solutions, one can take the necessary steps to protect themselves, ensure a safe environment, and comply with all applicable regulations. It's important to remember that fire safety is a critical responsibility, and prioritizing compliant and reliable systems is essential for protecting lives and property. Furthermore, when dealing with fire safety systems, it is essential to understand the different types of detectors and their appropriate applications. Firstly, smoke detectors are designed to detect the presence of smoke particles in the air. There are two main types: ionization smoke detectors and photoelectric smoke detectors. Ionization smoke detectors are generally more responsive to flaming fires, while photoelectric smoke detectors are more responsive to smoldering fires. Secondly, heat detectors are designed to respond to changes in temperature. There are two main types: fixed temperature heat detectors and rate of rise heat detectors. Fixed temperature heat detectors activate when the temperature reaches a predetermined level, while rate of rise heat detectors activate when the temperature increases rapidly. Thirdly, flame detectors are designed to detect the presence of flames. They are typically used in areas where there is a high risk of fire, such as industrial facilities. When selecting a fire detector, it is important to consider the specific hazards present in the area being protected. For example, smoke detectors are generally the best choice for residential applications, while heat detectors may be more appropriate for areas where there is a high risk of false alarms from smoke, such as kitchens or garages. Also, it is essential to ensure that the fire detectors are properly installed and maintained. They should be tested regularly and replaced when they reach the end of their service life. When working on fire alarm systems, it is crucial to follow all applicable codes and standards. NFPA 72 provides detailed requirements for the installation, testing, and maintenance of fire alarm systems. Compliance with these codes and standards is essential to ensure the safety and reliability of the fire alarm system. The discussion about the Edwards 282 BPL rate of rise heat detector highlights the importance of using devices that are appropriate for their intended application. Rate of rise heat detectors are designed to detect rapid increases in temperature, which can be indicative of a fire. However, they are also prone to false alarms in areas where temperature fluctuations are common, such as attics. This is why it is generally recommended to use fixed temperature heat detectors in attics, as they are less likely to be triggered by temperature fluctuations. The FIX 801RB heat detector is a rate of rise heat detector that is approved for use in attics. This is because it is designed to be less sensitive to temperature fluctuations than other rate of rise heat detectors. However, it is still important to consider the specific conditions in the attic before installing this type of detector. The recommendation to install smoke detectors in the attic is based on the fact that smoke detectors are generally more effective than heat detectors at detecting fires in the early stages. This is because smoke detectors can detect the presence of smoke particles in the air even before the temperature starts to rise. In areas with equipment, such as attics, smoldering fires are more likely to occur. Smoke detectors are particularly well suited for detecting these types of fires. Ensuring that the system has a direct current backup is a fundamental requirement for all fire alarm systems. A direct current backup provides power to the fire alarm system in the event of a power outage. This ensures that the system will continue to operate and provide protection even when the main power supply is interrupted. Direct current backups typically consist of batteries that are charged by the main power supply. When the main power supply fails, the batteries automatically take over and provide power to the fire alarm system. The size and capacity of the batteries will depend on the size and complexity of the fire alarm system. The importance of documentation and communication cannot be overstated. Keeping detailed records of all communication with the inspector, including their specific instructions and justifications, is essential for protecting you from liability. It is also important to document all concerns regarding liability, code violations, and potential risks associated with the proposed setup. Communicating these concerns in writing to the inspector ensures that they are aware of the potential issues and provides them with an opportunity to respond and address the concerns. Notifying the state fire marshal is a proactive step that can help ensure the safety and reliability of the fire alarm system. The state fire marshal is responsible for enforcing fire safety codes and standards. By informing the fire marshal about the situation, you can help ensure that the fire alarm system is properly installed and maintained. Consulting with a qualified fire alarm professional is highly recommended. A fire alarm professional can assess the specific installation, review the relevant codes and standards, and provide recommendations for the best course of action. Their expertise can help ensure that the fire alarm system is compliant, reliable, and effective. In addition to the technical aspects of fire alarm systems, it is also important to consider the legal and liability implications. If a fire occurs and the fire alarm system is not functioning properly, you could be held liable for any damages or injuries that result. This is why it is so important to ensure that the fire alarm system is properly installed, maintained, and compliant with all applicable codes and standards.